What would happen if the federal income tax rate for half the country was just slashed to zero overnight? It sounds like a total fantasy, right? Or maybe a massive typo in the tax code. But this radical proposal, which, believe it or not, is actually backed by Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, is completely flipping the script on how we fix the cost of living crisis. Right now, there's this quiet, high-stakes civil war happening over the basic price of everyday life. Lawmakers and billionaires are rushing out these completely opposite plans to rewrite the economy's rules, and honestly, your bank account is caught right in the crossfire. And this quote brilliantly illustrates the logic behind that zero tax pitch. Bezos is pointing out that because the bottom half of taxpayers only contributes about 3% of total tax revenues anyway, wiping out their liability completely doesn't actually break the system. Instead, it acts as this instant, super-powered financial lifeline. It puts real cash directly back into the hands of the working class to cover housing, food, car maintenance, all of it. And it bypasses the slow government bureaucracy entirely. Now, to understand why ideas this extreme are suddenly on the table, we really have to look at the great economic illusion happening right now. On paper, everything looks totally fine. We're seeing steady GDP growth, inflation is technically sub 4%, but on the ground, the reality is a staggering 76% of voters are in full-blown panic mode. Everyday families aren't just frustrated by past inflation anymore. They're actively terrified by a labor market that is visibly cooling down, wages that are stuck in the mud, and massive barriers just to reach basic financial security. The data says you should feel fine, but people feel like they're drowning. And it doesn't help when unexpected geopolitical shocks in the Middle East suddenly blow a massive hole in everyone's monthly budget. Retail gas prices just surged to an average of $4.56 a gallon. Just imagine pulling up to the pump and watching your weekly grocery budget literally vaporize just so you can get back and forth to work. This kind of geopolitical energy spike acts exactly like a hidden 1.5% inflation tax. It's basically erasing any prospective wage gains that workers were hoping to finally see this year. Families are getting trapped in this brutal, exhausting loop where they're working harder than ever, but their paychecks are actually buying less. So naturally, this intense squeeze is triggering a radical tax rewrite in Washington. It's a frantic legislative battle right now. On one side, you have progressive lawmakers like Senator Cory Booker who want to instantly triple the standard deduction to $75,000 for married couples. The play here is to immediately shield working families from federal taxes entirely, putting monthly cash relief straight into their pockets to handle everyday emergencies. But that strategy clashes directly with the Republican alternative moving through Congress right now, known as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, or OBBBA. This massive, sweeping legislation takes a totally different route to lower costs by permanently extending the 2017 tax cuts, boosting the child tax credit to $2,200, and completely exempting tips and overtime from federal taxes. Proponents are claiming this strategy will supercharge economic growth and boost annual take-home pay by up to $10,900 for a typical family of four. Here's the massive hidden catch, though. Nonpartisan budget watchdogs are waving red flags, warning that when you combine these new tax cuts with aggressive universal tariffs, the math just completely falls apart. Tariffs actually act as a hidden regressive consumption tax on everyday goods. Because of this dynamic, middle-income Americans could actually see their overall tax burden go up by an average of $900 this year. So the wealthiest get a tax cut, while everyday consumers take the hit right at the cash register. Now, what's really interesting is how this supply-side contradiction plays out in the real world. We're seeing this exact same policy friction spilling over into the housing market. On one hand, the overarching strategy is to slash federal regulations so we can build homes cheaper and faster. Makes sense, right? But on the exact same hand, aggressive immigration enforcement and heavy lumber tariffs are stripping construction sites of their crucial labor force and massively inflating the raw costs of building materials. It's wild. One policy is completely neutralizing the other. And the human impact of this gridlock is staggering. Just picture a young Gen Z couple pulling in a solid combined income of $40,000. Historically, that's a fantastic starting point, but they quickly realize they are completely blocked from buying a home, simply because median home prices have ballooned to 5 times what they make. They're locked out of this totally dystopian housing market where hard work just doesn't translate to ownership anymore. And that brings us to what's being called the progressive affordability trap. Because if the supply side has hidden contradictions, the progressive agenda is operating on an entirely different philosophy. They view the crisis as structural, driven by a widening 40-year gap between worker productivity and middle-class income.
They basically see this as an inequality tax. So their legislative push is massive, capping universal childcare at 7% of income, granting $20,000 down payments to first-time homebuyers, manufacturing generic insulin directly for $50 a vial, and doubling overtime pay premiums.
Honestly, it sounds like an amazing lifeline for struggling families. But conservative economists are quick to point out a fatal flaw here, an inflationary feedback loop. Mandating expensive labor rules, like doubled overtime pay, forces local daycares, retail grocers, and clinics to raise their prices just to survive. Plus, pumping direct cash into a housing market that already completely lacks supply, that's just going to allow buyers to bid up home prices even further. It creates this massive cost-push inflation spiral where the political fixes being offered actually wipe out the exact savings they promised to deliver.
We're seeing this tension play out with real human consequences right now, especially in childcare. If the administration rescinds the rules that cap low-income childcare copayments at 7% of household income, a working mother might literally be forced to reduce her hours or just quit her job entirely. That single policy shift could strip a family of up to $15,000 in potential annual savings, forcing this terrible, impossible choice between career and care.
As Washington struggles with this gridlock, we're seeing some extreme state-level defensive maneuvers. Local states are being forced into panic mode just to protect their residents. Because of massive federal funding cuts enacted recently, states are staring down severe structural challenges. Take California, for example. Just to survive the loss of billions in healthcare and education funds, the state is desperately deploying new defensive tactics. They're proposing permanent corporate tax caps and brand new digital software taxes just to stabilize their general fund. It really shows how national high-level political battles end up restricting benefits and raising your everyday fees at the local level. But wait, there might actually be a way out of this, forging a bipartisan path. With the previous models carrying such heavy risks and massive contradictions, a quiet group of lawmakers is actually trying to forge a third option. They're pushing pragmatic, bipartisan bills like the 21st Century Road to Housing Act and the Child Care Modernization Act. These focus on lowering structural costs without blowing up the federal deficit. They're combining targeted deregulation, like expanding private capital pools for low-income housing, with absolutely crucial restrictions, like stopping massive Wall Street firms from hoarding single-family rental homes. They basically want to upgrade federal childcare subsidies to cover the actual cost of care without triggering that nasty inflationary spiral we talked about. Which leaves us with the ultimate uncertainty here. We know there are practical, non-inflationary ways to actually lower your bills. The real question is, will lawmakers embrace these pragmatic compromises, or are they going to stay trapped in ideological gridlock just to score political points? Tell me how you see this playing out. Are we finally going to get some real relief, or is this just going to be more political theater? Drop your take in the comments down below. I really want to read through your theories on this one.
An investment in knowledge pays the best interest, so why not invest in this channel? Click like and subscribe for more.